Alright, so a few days ago I was talking to one of my friends and he said something that really grinded my gears. And that was, I don't have time for gaming anymore, I should look into making a schedule. Or, I might just need to quit it altogether. Now in all honesty, he was kind of trying to rage bait me, you know, that usual thing when your friend just tries to rage bait the living hell out of you, piss you off, get a reaction. I am pretty guilty of that myself, so I guess I can't blame him too much for that. But it did spark this discussion in my mind that I kind of wanted to rant about. And that was that I'm noticing more and more of this backlog culture, as I like to call it. Now, I think there's a few reasons it exists. The first one is very obviously people don't have a lot of time and they just try to, backlog a lot of games. They'll play it eventually, they'll play it at the right time, they'll fucking play it when Jesus comes, like the second coming of Christ or whatever. I've heard all kinds of variants. And I do understand that people are getting very busy nowadays. We do live in an era where a lot is expected of the average person. So I'm really not trying to sound privileged. Like, I myself am very busy, I have to work, pay bills, work out, just all the average stuff that comes along with, living in the modern era. So I do have a lot of empathy for people not having time and not getting to their backlog. And then another thing that I think really contributes to this is I've noticed nowadays there's this very big focus on tracking everything you do and making platforms for other people to see it. So stuff like My Anime List, Backlogged itself, which is the website that I'm mostly showing in this video, where there's this whole backlog culture as I call it. There's just this need to track and show everything to other people, which kind of has its benefits and has its downsides. I do understand why this kind of thing exists, and I do have my own backlog. Now, how this all goes back to what my friend originally said is because in today's era, even though gaming has gotten very popular, it still is treated with this thing of you'll grow out of it, if that makes sense. Kind of like toys a little bit, right? Because when's the last time you've heard someone unironically say, now my friend was joking, but people do really say this. Like, when's the last time you heard someone say, I'm just gonna stop watching movies, stop watching TV shows? But I mean, really mean it, not like get pissed off that, some show ended badly or something. Like, it's not really something people say, right? Because it's just a medium that exists and you consume it. So logically, gaming should be treated the same, but it's kind of not. And it's just very confusing in my mind why society still treats it this way. And so that's where my half of the problems begin. So first off, there is a half of people that start, making schedules, making backlogs, like trying to track everything. But ironically enough, it leads to this decision paralysis again. Now, you've all seen the research like 10,000 times, how when you're presented with a lot of choices, you have a harder time picking, right? The thing is, when you look at a backlog, it's actually the exact same effect for people. Where yes, you've now written down every single thing you will do and play, but you have a hard time picking again. And I mean, I'm not saying that backlogs shouldn't exist or that you shouldn't run them, but the reason I'm making this video is because I want to give advice to people about how they can start cleaning their backlog and how they can enjoy games even when they're busy. Now, just to say, there will be times in your life when you will be extremely busy, not in the mood, depressed, whatever, and you won't play games, right? I mean, obviously we're humans. I'm not saying when like someone passed away or something, just start like playing these kinds of games or whatever. That is not my point. I am just trying to say, don't like revert to that cringe mindset of I'm done with gaming. Because it's just something you do, right? It's just an activity. Like, what is it with this finality? Like, I'll never do it again. It's just very dumb in my mind. So my first advice is to very simply play arcade games. And arcade games can mean a lot. I know the very first thing that comes into your mind is just, like the classic arcade that has a Street Fighter 2 cabinet or something. Like, yes, that is part of what I'm encouraging you to do. But arcade games actually stretches very far into what I would say are even games like Devil May Cry that are called character action, and I do think that's a good name, even though there's like some hate for the name of the subgenre. But they are also technically arcade games. So what I've done is I've actually categorized a few genres of arcade games, and I'm going to recommend them to you based on both the type of mood you're in and also the kind of player you are. Now, you might have noticed as well, I said specifically arcade games, I didn't say roguelike games. Now I will go in the end into why I didn't actually recommend roguelike games for, when you're busier or just for something to pick up and play, but because there will be a whole other video about it, I won't go into too much detail, but I do think they have a lot of design flaws. So the first style of arcade game is one that I recommend to players who want to be stylish, to have very free flow combat, but also have challenging bosses where they do actually have to utilize the mechanics carefully, and that is the character action subgenre. So this is games like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, God Hand, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. You can probably think of a few other examples yourself. Now what makes these games great is they have a very fundamental pillar of arcade games, and that is skill expression. Another great thing about them is that they use a mission by mission structure, so they're very bite-sized to play. You can play for 10 minutes at a time and you can just be done for the day. And it's just great because it's very convenient, right? Even if you get stopped, you can just continue playing the next day or later because you didn't even lose that much time anyways, right? These games are also great for replayability. Now the replayability doesn't come from seeing new content, it comes from mastery. This kind of applies to all arcade games, I would say, but you very vividly see it here because of the grading system. So they have an incredibly high skill ceiling, and you might clear a normal level with, let's say, a C rank, but you have the urge to go back, optimize your combos, utilize advanced mechanics. So in DMC, this would be things like jump canceling, where you basically cancel out your jump with an attack, and you can kind of keep doing this juggle combo. Or, royal guarding, which is the whole parry mechanic. And getting the S rank is just extremely satisfying, and something that you can do in short bursts of gameplay, but still feel satisfied. Now the next genre I highly recommend is beat 'em ups. So things like Streets of Rage 4, or I hate to say this, but I've heard Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge is also really good. I will say this is a genre that I'm not the most experienced with. I've played a bit and I think it's really fun, but the main reasons I highly recommend it is, again, the time efficiency aspect, obviously, because they're short, focused. It's very simple. You just walk, you punch bad guys, fight a boss. It sounds simple, but obviously it's very hard. And if you look at like the achievements for some of these games, they're really crazy. A full arcade run, it rarely extends like an hour, and an individual stage can take up around 10 minutes to play. So it's a very pick up and play genre. The variety in it comes from mechanical friction between the characters. So playing a slow grappler, it feels like a very different game from playing a fast, agile combo character. So kind of like a fighting game, but the combos aren't usually as deep. However, I am seeing some newer indie games that are experimenting with this. Now the next genre is one that I've been getting into recently, and it's shmups or shoot 'em ups. Now these games are quite literally designed to just last 20 to 30 minutes. There's like zero fluff in them. You're basically in the action from second one, like fucking in the main menu, you're already in the game basically, you know what I mean? Like they're essentially just these hyper fast, almost like kinetic puzzle games, I would say, and the replayability comes in routing, but this is where I want to highly recommend. So do your own routing in these games. It's like way more fun, and also maximizing the scoring system. Now shmups, there's like no shortage of them. I could be here recommending for days, but obviously a very good beginner entry is Touhou, which I assume most of you are familiar with. But one of my favorites is actually Cyberia 2. This game is so fucking good. The music is godlike. I recently found out it was made by Koreans as well, which was kind of surprised me. I thought it was a Japanese game. Some other cult classics are Ikaruga, of course, which has a really cool system with the colors and how you can shoot. There's games like Radiant Silvergun, which has this almost Evangelion-like aesthetic, but it's also kind of like an RPG mixed with a shmup. I've yet to play it, but it always looks very crazy. So there's no shortage of games. You basically have shmups for several lifetimes at least. And of course, last but not least, we have to bring up fighting games. So a single match only takes around 2 to 3 minutes. Even if you only have 15 minutes to play, it's like, 5 matches that you can basically play. So time efficiency wise, it's just a great system. And then we can go into it two ways. So just playing the AI itself can be interesting enough, trying to figure out its patterns. It takes a long time to find out all the tricks. Even that itself can be pretty fun, but then the replayability, if we're counting humans, is just unreal. Like if you have a friend, you basically just have a dynamic variable, I guess you would say. Like you're not fighting an AI script, you're just playing these like really insane mind games, which are called yomi in Japanese, against another human. So it's like it's everything. It's like you mix chess with poker with turn-based games. Like fighting games are honestly a fever dream, and they're probably, I would say, next to RTS, they are the deepest genre. I know MOBA fans are gonna start getting pissed off and whining, but I do genuinely think RTS and fighting games are the deepest genres. You know, some games I'd recommend, very obviously Street Fighter 3, Third Strike. If you don't want something as hardcore though, you can also give Street Fighter 6 a try. Guilty Gear Strive, the older Guilty Gear games, you know, Accent Core Plus R. You know, there's also 3D fighting games, which I should also mention, so stuff like Tekken, Soul Calibur, you know, Virtua Fighter, there's gonna be a new one coming out, but 4 and 5 are amazing as well. Just, there's really no shortage. I mean, in the 90s and 2000s, they made so many of these fucking games. It's basically just the same as shmups. Now, kind of quickly, because as I said, not even just one video, I plan to make multiple videos about this. There's a lot of hidden design flaws in roguelikes, and why I didn't really bring them up here. So first off, they have this illusion of variety. They play a lot with procedural generation, which often just translates to mixing and matching pre-built room templates, and every time you just kind of stop seeing a new world, which is what the whole magic should be, and you just start seeing the math behind the algorithm. It just starts making everything feel sterile. Now sure, in arcade games you are seeing the same thing over and over again, but it's this artistic piece someone made and they carefully designed it. It just feels different. Like, it's like watching an art piece or rereading a very good book, like let's say Blood Meridian, and now you have more understanding of it because you've read it a few times. Whereas with roguelikes, it just feels random, which is, I mean, is the point, it should be random. But that kind of diminishes the value to me. Now in a roguelike, you know, RNG just basically kind of dictates the success. So getting a good run can sometimes just mean that things just, you know, align properly, which is very much the antithesis of arcade game design. They are perfect. They are like chess or shogi or Go or any of these games. They are literally perfect games, especially fighting games and shmups. Your skill expression is very easily seeable. And now many modern roguelikes, they also heavily rely on persistent upgrades, so it kind of just acts as an artificial gate, you know, plus 5% health, plus 2% damage. You aren't really winning because you got better at the game, you're just kind of winning because you grinded enough currency to make your stats high enough to clear the floor. And now because I did kind of go into more so what games I recommend for when you're busy, I did also want to give a kind of obvious tip for when it comes to cleaning your backlog. And it's just pick the shorter games, right? When you're strict on time, just go on how long to beat, pick the shorter games, and don't like doubt or second guess yourself too much, like waiting for that perfect moment, all of that. I mean, sure, if there's like some game you think is gonna be really special, do it. But I found that a lot of times just going into it, you eventually just end up getting in the mood, I would say. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to rant about today. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. You know, don't start arguing too much about the roguelike stuff yet, because I haven't even like said half of it. To clarify, I don't really hate roguelike games or anything like that. I do play roguelikes. It's just there's a lot to unpack there. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this overall topic in the comments. You know, if you liked the video, leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.